Hello, we're now on to Chapter 3 in our Strategic Compensation textbook, Traditional Bases for Pay, looking at both seniority and merit pay. So there are several different bases for seniority pay. First, we should decide what is seniority pay. Pretty self-explanatory. It's pay raises or bonuses that you receive over a period of time based on your seniority with an organization. It really proves that employees become more valuable to an organization the longer they're with the company, and that good employees will stay with us if we compensate them appropriately. The process behind seniority pay, the idea behind seniority pay, is that it's designed to reward job tenure. So it really increases our labor market because we have employees that want to stay with us longer as they hit these different benchmarks in their career goals. We never want employees to feel that they've topped out and that they can't go any farther. We want employees to stay with us 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. We start with the base pay and then we have different step increases, or we have different jobs that are in line with one another that can create some different goals for an employee so that they can move up throughout the organization. The concept of collective bargaining comes up in Chapter 3. This is usually associated with union representation. Collective bargaining is when you have a group of individuals that get together focused on employee rights and issues. Obviously, compensation and benefits is one of those, and they can play a tremendous role in different types of industries. There are both pros and cons to working with collective bargaining units, but they can be great. They have their time and place without a doubt. Longevity pay is a type of seniority pay, just as it sounds. So the longer with an organization, the more you will receive as an individual. You move up with your base rate of pay. And companies can have it set at different indicators. So you can either, with seniority pay, it goes as you move through seniority, or you have more vested time with an organization. A little bit later in the chapter, we'll talk about merit pay, and that's a step in pay, or you can go up based upon your performance, not necessarily your time with an organization. Well, here we go. This is merit pay. We're moving right along. We're doing good at a 2-minute mark. Merit pay plans. Pay increases based on the performance of the individual. This can be a great option because it doesn't force you into a year-based system. If you have a fantastic employee that is making leaps and bounds in the organization, then you can continue to give them merit increases instead of needing to wait for that 12-month marker to give them a seniority pay and boost. It rewards excellent effort or results, motivates future performance, and you certainly help retain valued employees that might be looking for a quicker transition to top seniority than to hang around year by year by year for that 5% increase, whatever it might be. So the elements of merit pay, they're based on objective and subjective indicators, periodic performance reviews, setting realistic and attainable standards that you want your employees to be able to achieve, and the pay increases really affect your performance. So for those employees that are very highly motivated and that can do a lot of great work in a short period of time, merit pay is the way to go. For those industries and organizations that you either have high turnover or you want to really create a sound workforce where you have people come in, they move up from engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, senior engineer, the seniority pay system would be a way to go. So there are 4 types of performance appraisal systems that this chapter highlights. The first being the traits system. And this is where we have raters or performance reviewers actually rate an individual employee based upon their traits and characteristics, such as their quality of work, their leadership responsibility, cooperation, creativity in the workforce. This can be a little bit more of a subjective matter because everyone would have a different take on whether that employee has strong leadership responsibilities in the workforce. The comparison system, this is a type of evaluation that's given to employees' performance against the other employees' performance. So you're really looking at how well are all 10 of our engineers doing. We have our top performers, we have our poor performers, and rating them upon one another. So that's our comparison system, comparing them upon one another. The third type of appraisal system is the behavioral system. Rates employees on the extent to which they display successful job performance behaviors. And there's critical thinking, critical incident technique, behaviorally anchored rating scales, also known as the bars, and then the behavioral observation scales. This one I have used personally. I find it very, very effective. There are several different slides as we go through on the 3 different types of systems. I encourage you to look through. That might be your burning question for the week. There are different types of sources for the performance appraisal evaluation. If you have one supervisor, one manager that can use these different types of approaches, it can be more straightforward. If you have the same reviewer every year, then you have someone that really knows that employee's work habits, how much improvement they've made over the years. But if you have a supervisor and employee that doesn't work well together, then this can really be a detriment to the individual. This is where something such as the 360-degree performance appraisal system is incredibly beneficial to an organization. It does take more time. I don't know if you're very familiar with it. I've worked it with myself. I love it because you're getting a more broad spectrum of feedback from others in the organization. So if you are evaluating your executive secretary for their performance over the last year, then I would probably, as their hiring manager, talk with some of their colleagues, maybe 2 of their colleagues that they work with on a daily basis, maybe 2 department managers that they work with on at least a weekly basis, and then I'm getting feedback from a variety of sources. That's our 360-degree element there. So instead of just one person saying, well, they're consistent, they come in on time, they seem to be self-motivated, they're a quick thinker, then I'm getting all of these other elements that are integrated into their performance appraisal system. And while the performance appraisal system is most directly related with compensation, with pay, we want to make sure that we're using these annual appraisals as a means to grow our employees. So giving them constructive feedback, criticisms, room for growth. This is what we really want rather than just that annual marker and we give them an automatic raise. The chapter wraps up with dealing with the 4 major types of rater errors. So while we have all of these great performance appraisal systems, there always seems to be the chance that something could go wrong. These are known as rater errors. The first is a bias error. And keeping in mind, we just discussed the 360-degree review. It does take more time, but it eliminates more of these error factors because we don't just have one reviewer. So back to the 4 types of rater errors. The first is a bias error. You have some sort of first impression effect. You have the halo effect, which either positive or negative. You just have this general aura about this person. You feel like they're lazy, or on the positive end, everything they do is perfect. Really have that narrow focused view. That's a biased error. Contrast errors. Supervisor compares employees with other employees. That might not necessarily be the best indicator. You might have 2 fantastic employees, so one is going to be the star student and the other is not going to meet the marker. They might both be well above average, well above normal, but because one seems to perform a little bit better than the other one is judged for that. Errors in central tendency is when employees are rated really on an average. Usually you have that average and then you have one person that stands out as the extreme. And then our 4th type of rater error is the errors of leniency or strictness. Leniency meaning the managers rate the employees more highly than they would rate them using more objective criteria. Or the strictness error, supervisors rate employees' performance lower than they would rate them using objective criteria. That's why I really recommend the 360-degree review, because you have a more broad overview and a lot of different thinkers involved in this performance appraisal system. I talked too long again. It's already 9 minutes. We're on to the next chapter.